Today's video is, I guess, all about undoing your brainwashing of sorts, I guess. Like, this is something I've slowly had to do over time as I've realized more and more of the things that I was indoctrinated in are total bullshit. And so just kind of undoing that over time, like as I slowly examine different self-talk that I have or different ways that I think about myself or my trauma or men or different things. So I'll just have a lot of moments where I'm just like, wait, that actually doesn't make any sense. And I have compiled a giant list that I'm going to go through as quickly as possible about the different things that I've kind of assessed where I'm like, yeah, it's actually the opposite. And so I guess that's why I'm going to call this video Flipping Your Logic, because so many times it actually feels like it's literally flipping it. It actually is the opposite thing of what I was taught to think. And so I'm just going to go through some of these bad boys, and you guys can let me know if you relate to any of this or if you don't agree with me, because obviously you don't have to agree with me, but these are some of the things that I've noticed that I just have flipped, mentally flipped, and come to believe the opposite now in my healing process. I would almost say welcome to opposite world, where everything as a trauma survivor or a sex trauma survivor or an abuse survivor or a grooming survivor gets totally flipped on its fucking head. So, first thing, number one, right out the gate, I don't measure if I should continue dating someone by if I had a good evening with them, like a really good, amazing first date. I don't do that anymore, which sounds really weird, and it's been really weird for me to get used to as well. I don't care if they make me laugh. I don't care if we had an amazing evening, and if by any chance, by God, they feel like my soulmate in any kind of way, I run the other direction as fast as I can. So what that really has been for me, and I was kind of told this by my sponsor when I first got sober. I've been told this by multiple therapists. I've seen it in different videos I've watched online. You know, for me as a trauma survivor, I'll just speak for myself. A lot of the people that I am initially attracted to are people who are incredibly freakishly similar to my very first abuser, or really any of the other abusers that I've been involved with. And so if I feel that innate chemical, pheromone, whatever attraction to them, where it feels like my body's just being pulled towards them, we just have this instant connection, that is really not a good thing for me nowadays. And I've actually found for myself personally that the stronger the attraction is that I have towards someone, if I stick around, because I'm still learning and making mistakes myself, if I do stick around and I don't listen to that and logically acknowledge this is going to be a train wreck, the more attracted to them I am, the more abusive they end up being. That's just been my experience. And so that's the first thing that I really had to learn to flip logically for myself, especially because a lot of these guys will use that as like their selling point for really reeling me in. Is like, look how attracted to each other we are, you know, and I'll be like, yeah, I know, I gotta go away. And it's been really hard for me because, you know, I've had to get used to, and I'm not good at it yet. I'm not even sitting here like, Anna, I'm not married. I'm not dating anybody. You know, I'm still working through this stuff because I had to learn that a really good first date for me is one where honestly I feel kind of bored. And I'm not going to tell the person that because that's freaking horrible. But I just mean, maybe not that I find them boring, but I'm not getting that giant dump of serotonin. I'm not getting that giant dump of dopamine in my brain that makes me feel like I'm freaking high off of a human being. You know, that's not really the purpose of our lives for each other anyway. We're not supposed to be drugs to one another. Like, come on. And I have to remind myself of that too, because I want someone to be a drug to me sometimes. I swear I've never gotten a high off of anything like I got a high off of a predatory dude. It's really sad, but I can keep that buzz going for a few months, you know? So anyway, that's probably the first thing that I've had to really flip, is what my expectations are going in on my first few dates with a person. It's really weird. It's really weird to have to talk myself into giving a person another chance who I don't really necessarily feel a chemical connection with. I don't maybe necessarily feel like we have a lot in common, because the things that I used to use to have in common with someone was my trauma. That I don't want that to be the basis for my relationship with someone anyway. I don't want that to be like the main thing that we have in common is trauma. So, but that's weird. It's weird for me to get used to that. So that's the first thing that I've really had to flip. Kind of in a similar train of thought, having amazing sex with someone and feeling crazy sexually attracted to someone doesn't mean that they're your soulmate. And doesn't mean that they're the person that you're destined to be with. You know, I used to really think that, like, if I didn't have amazing, like, level 10 kinky porn level sex with somebody, then like that relationship was bad. And also I measured how in love we were, air quotes, you can only see my fingers down here. But I used to measure how much we were in love in the relationship by how much sex we were having. Well, when I really examined where I learned that, because again, I wasn't born thinking that as a baby. You know, I didn't come out of the womb and as a child measure love through sex. So where did I learn that? Well, when I take a little walk back into my childhood, you know, I met a predator when I was 13, and he really taught me to associate those two things together. And then he indoctrinated me with porn, and porn taught me to associate those two things together. So when I examined the source of where I learned that stuff from, really not a great source, really not a super credible source. A pedophile taught me to associate those two things together. And then I went on to date a bunch of sex addicts who really also encouraged that narrative. So I choose to not really measure love that way now, and also not measure how to find my future husband that way, or my future partner, or whatever. You know, because I look at who taught me that, where I got that idea from, and I don't like the sources. So, you know, chucking that one out. Also, just like that, just because you get stupid, crazy depressed over them doesn't mean that they're your soulmate either. You know, people have come downs, really serious come downs from drugs. And that doesn't mean that they're destined to use heroin forever, because heroin or you know, any drug that gets them a crazy high and has a crazy crash afterwards, that doesn't mean that they're destined to use that drug forever. And it's the same thing with a person. Just because you get a really high high, if you get a really high high, you're going to have a really low low. That's just how that works. And those deep valleys and high mountains don't mean that that's your soulmate. So, you know, I also used to think that, and I think I'd had dudes that would say that to me too, like, oh, I've been so sad about you today. That means that we shouldn't have broken up. If I'm crazy sad about the breakup, that probably means we shouldn't have broken up at all. No, that means you're making a really hard life decision for yourself. Like, there are lots of really bad things that I've given up in my life. It was hard to quit alcohol. You don't think I miss that sometimes? You know what I mean? But you know what I didn't miss? Ruining my own life while drunk. Possibly legally sometimes, you know? So just because I was sad about not drinking anymore doesn't mean like, oh, I should probably go back to drinking because I'm feeling kind of sad about it. Same thing for toxic relationships and people that are bad for you. But I used to really think that as well, from how depressed I would feel, how drained of energy my body felt. I was like, dang, you know, I really must have given up a good one, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be feeling this sad. And it's like, no, you're probably just detoxing, and your brain is probably like, where's my dopamine hit, you know? Which is the person, and it's just that for me, I think that's all that's really going on inside of me chemically. I mean, you can miss the person too, but again, it doesn't determine that they're right for you, that they're the right one for you. Also, possibly a hot button controversial question to ask, but if our bodies are so valuable, why are we giving them away so easily? That's what I had to ask myself. If my body is so freaking valuable, which it is, and I think it is, the thing's pretty fancy, why am I giving it away to some dude that I just met 24 hours ago? Like, I'm not saying you can do whatever you want. People can do whatever they want sexually. We're adults. It's your choice. But I personally sometimes felt really depressed after having casual sex because I actually was super into the person and I was hoping it would go further. So I gave them my body. I wanted to have the sex, I was super into it, but I also think I was hoping that it would go further. And every time that it didn't go further, I always felt, me personally, I always felt a little sad that I had given them something that ended up feeling like a valuable thing that I had given away that maybe, if I hadn't have waited to give it away, which has happened now as I've waited to give it away, when I find out that the dude's actually like super creepy psycho or really disrespectful to me, or he says he's fine with waiting and then literally like can't even make it another 48 hours before ghosting me. When things like that happen, I'm really glad that I didn't have sex with that person every single time. Yeah. So, the whole vetting process really working out for me. And it just kind of goes back into that thought of like, if my body's pretty valuable and if sex is a valuable thing, I would pose the same question to a guy. Their bodies are just as valuable as a woman's. Everybody's body's valuable. Everybody's time is valuable. And that's another question. If my body and my time are valuable, why am I giving them away so easily to men that I barely know? Shouldn't there be some kind of, and a lot of these guys, if they're on the more manipulative end of the spectrum, they'll really try to make me feel like crap that I'm not blowing up their phone 24/7 and doing like the codependent dance where we immediately just become like instantly addicted to each other and we just like call and text all the time. A lot of people, that's how they want to approach dating now. And my time is valuable and I have other things that I'm interested in doing besides just sitting around texting you all day long. I have actual hobbies that I do now. I have relationships outside of just a romantic relationship that are valuable to me now. And I don't want to compromise those things, especially for a person that I've only known for 24 to 48 hours. So, that as I've grown to value my time and value my body, really weeds out a lot of people who don't respect my time and don't respect my body because they act entitled to it. And then when I say, no, you have to wait, they don't like that and they drop off, and that's totally fine. But it's just a different song and dance that I'm getting used to. And I used to think the opposite. I don't know what I used to think, but I basically used to think that, I'd call my body valuable, but I'd give it away to everybody. And I thought my time was valuable, but I gave it away to everyone too, to where, I really didn't have anything left for myself. And it's how I ended up being a shell of a person in a lot of ways. So I've really had to flip that logic too. What does it look like when you treat a body as valuable? What does it look like when you treat time as valuable? And you find out that people who say that they value your body and say that they value your time, people who talk that talk, because talk is real easy, you have to pay attention to their actions, because when you actually treat your body as valuable and your time as valuable, it can piss some people off who actually didn't find it valuable at all and are mad that you're not giving it away easier. So, are you actually crazy? Think that's an important one to assess. Just me personally, I think it's really important to assess that. First of all, go back and examine the sources of who has called you crazy in your life. And if a lot of the people that have called you crazy have been manipulative people who you found out in the end were cheating on you, abusing you, whatever, I would really reassess that word that you use for yourself. I know someone where they literally found out that the guy had cheated on every single person before them. But then, and she was worried and suspicious that maybe he was cheating on her too, but she kept calling herself crazy for wondering about that. That's not crazy. You find out some information and you wonder if it's relevant to yourself. And it most likely is, because no offense, I don't believe most people change for just one person. You're not that fancy. I'm sorry. And so, but for her to call herself crazy when she found out something about his past behavior that might be relevant to her, and he was still being super closed and secretive with her, that's not crazy. That's taking information and applying it to your situation and wondering what's up. That's just being logical. That's just paying attention to your surroundings. That's just trying to protect yourself. That's not crazy. So when we're really examining this word, that is not the time that you call yourself crazy. It's just not. I'm sure he called her crazy because he wanted her to stop digging into his shit, but that doesn't actually make you crazy. I'm not saying you can't get triggered sometimes and you need to check your stuff and like make sure that you're not like totally flying all over the place and just in fight or flight mode 24/7. All that stuff, totally good. You should definitely do that. But at the same time, if you had a past dude that acted in a super sketch way or put you down in a way that this guy is putting you down or being secretive or being sketch, and then you're wondering, oh, maybe he's like manipulating me or cheating on me the way this past guy did, that's not crazy. That's you seeing the same behaviors and wondering if the same thing is happening. You see what I'm saying? Like, I just don't see the word being used correctly. That's all I'm saying. And I've stopped saying it to myself because I used to just get in these relationships with guys and right out the gate, I'd be throwing that word on myself so casually, just calling myself crazy left, right, and center. And then when they did it, I didn't have room to talk because I'd already been labeling myself that way. And I'm not even going to open that door now. Like, I'm not going to put myself down in that kind of way. I just think there's a lot more adjectives out there that could be used aside from crazy. Even just triggered. Triggered's just like a much more respectful, logical word to explain what's going on. Crazy doesn't teach you anything about yourself, and it doesn't teach other people anything about yourself. It's not a word that can be like learned from. I think it's just a really derogatory word. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Be offended, sorry, this is the next one, and be offended when a married guy or a guy with a girlfriend hits on you, or a person. Again, for dudes, this would be a married lady or a lady with a boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever. So, be offended by that. I used to measure my worth with my body. I used to measure my worth by how much attention I could get from however many people in the room. And if I didn't get attention from a lot of people in the room, that must mean that I'm worthless. That is not, again, if we're talking about flipping logic, that's not how I measure my worth today. I could give two shits about if I get anybody's attention in the room because I know I'm valuable and I don't need that to prove that. But I'm just saying, once I've developed standards for myself, most people really aren't worth my time, in my opinion, because most people don't actually know what they're looking for at all. If you actually ask a person, what are you looking for in a romantic relationship? They'll list like 2 or 3 things, and the qualities that they usually list are not, they're usually more shallow things like he makes me laugh, he's hot, he's funny. The qualities that don't necessarily have to do with like the longevity of a relationship, things with roots. You know what I'm saying? Things that really have to do with how you're treated in the relationship. Most people don't know what they're looking for with that, and they're willing to compromise because they're afraid that if they have really hard standards, they're going to be alone. And so anyway, since I've started having really hard standards, I'm definitely alone. Anyway, but my point is, I used to think that if I could get the attention of a married dude or a guy with a girlfriend, that must mean that I'm just like extra special and extra hot. Because I am so freaking hot and I am so freaking special that this guy can't even help staying loyal to his partner. He has to come over and talk to me because I look that hot. And now I'm offended. I'm actually offended because I'm like, what do you think you see in me that you think you can come over here as a married dude or a dude with a girlfriend and disrespect me in this kind of way? For real. Like, do you think that I am so lonely and my self-esteem is so low that I would ever compromise myself and take, what do they have to offer you, dude? Really think about that. What does somebody with a partner, with a romantic partner, actually have to offer you? 10% of their time at a hotel? Like, they can't give you all of their time. They can't give you all of their heart. They can't give you all of their attention. And that's what you deserve. You deserve all of someone's heart. You deserve all of someone's attention and time. And they can't offer you that. So what are they really offering you? If they're even offering you anything, maybe they just want to come over and flirt, right? But with most dudes, I've found that if they're ballsy enough to come over and flirt with me, they've cheated before and they're looking for something. Most of the time. That's just me. If it's innocent flirting, it's whatever, but most flirting isn't innocent and most flirting leads to more. That's just the world nowadays. That's just my experience. And so because of that, I'm not going to be flattered. I'm going to be offended because I don't want 10% of your time and I can go get casual sex with someone else at the bar down the street. I don't need you. You might need me because you feel like entrapped or whatever in your situation that you got going on that clearly you don't appreciate, that you think you need 2 women instead of just 1, whatever. But I'm not going to be flattered by that nowadays because I don't want your 10%. You can keep it. I deserve way freaking more than that. And the last thing that I would kind of examine is this idea of what you want to be the truth and what actually is the truth. And this is what a lot of cognitive dissonance stems from. You know, cognitive dissonance is where basically what I just said, you want one reality to be the truth, but in all actuality, the reality actually is something else. And so these 2 ideas cannot be married together. They just can't come together and merge because there is the truth of the situation, and then there is the desire mentally for what you want the situation to be. And so that causes a lot of mental strife in people while they're in the midst of whatever situation they're in, because they have this back and forth mentally going on in their head, this back and forth narrative of, I think they're a dangerous person, I think they're untrustworthy, I think they're cheating on me, to no, I trust them, everything's great, everything's wonderful, they're the man I've always dreamed of, this is fantastic, keep it going forever, you know, and pendulum swinging back and forth. And I've felt that 1,000 times. I totally relate to that. It's horrible. It's a horrible thing. You feel like you're in the middle of a tornado spiral. Add in the fact that they're totally throwing in their 2 cents all the time to keep you just spinning around. And you don't know what's up and what's down anymore after a while of that. But I just really want to encourage you to be aware of that, and to be aware of the fact that there was a guy I was with and I wanted to trust him so much. And when I talked to him and when I talked to my friends, I said that I trusted him. I said, I trust him, I trust him, I trust him. But I didn't ever trust him. I just wanted to trust him. And I couldn't trust him because, sorry, I'm like fiddling with the light. I couldn't trust him because of all of the behaviors, all of the truth that he was showing me through his behaviors always spoke to the opposite, that he was not trustworthy. And I would talk to him about it and we would process it together. You know, but at the end of the day, his behavior spoke very loudly about the fact that he was not a safe person. But I wanted him to be a safe person. And so just sometimes understanding that can maybe help people realize, again, that they're not crazy, and also why they're feeling so tortured inside. You know, there is the truth. There is the truth. And it is what it is. And it will always show itself and you will always feel it, and it can't really be hidden. It can be hidden for a moment. It can be masked for a moment or two, but the truth always shows at the end of the day. And what it really comes down to is at the end of the day is that we don't want to see it. It's not that it's not there. It's not that it's not obvious or present. It is there and it's able to be seen. The issue is that we don't want to see it. We don't want to turn and look at that thing. And that's why we process the abuse with our abuser, because we want it to be something else so desperately. And so we're hoping that they will provide us with a narrative that will help us stay with them because we want to stay. And so just really understand that just because you want them to be trustworthy doesn't mean that they are trustworthy. And on another kind of branch off of that, just because they want you to be okay with something doesn't mean that you have to be okay with something. You know, a lot of these dudes that I've been involved with act like they wrote the freaking guidebook to relationships for life. Like they know just how all relationships are supposed to go, and they are the relationship expert, and they know all the rules for the relationship, right? That's one way that they control the narrative in what's going on. But at the end of the day, it's opinions. How they feel and what they want is just their personal opinion. It's just their personal preference. And no matter how much they bully you and try to convince you that there is something wrong with you because you do not want the same things as them, that does not mean that there is actually something wrong with you because you don't want the same things as them. They are one person. There are a billion other people out there who will not necessarily want the same things that this dude standing in front of you does. And so just understand that that's not the same either. It's not like they determine what everyone should desire, including yourself. So just because they want you to want something doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you because you do not want it. And similar to that, just because they call you a bitch doesn't mean that you're a bitch. Maybe it means you're doing something right for once in your life.